I'm Lisa Taylor, and this is Ideas on Truth. Welcome to the program. If you are a new viewer, welcome, welcome. If you are a regular viewer, it's nice to see you again. I had an email from a viewer, and I want to address it tonight. This dear woman, I won't mention her name because I haven't actually asked her about using her story on here, but I will just talk about the subject. I will not talk about her story. This dear woman lost her husband several years ago and is dealing with a great sense of loss. And what I wanted to do tonight was talk about how do we deal with a great sense of loss when we're dealing with loss. I can't even come close to pronouncing the guest who just came on, Krysiak Panusiak. Hi. I'm sure I just completely butchered the pronunciation of your name, but welcome and thank you for watching. So we're talking about loss, dealing with loss, facing with loss. And loss can come in many, many forms. A loved one, a job, security, innocence. There's so many different ways that loss can show up in our lives. And I have actually in the last year dealt with the loss of loved ones, several different loved ones in different scenarios, sickness, and I just want to share with you some of the ideas that have helped me, and I hope it would help you. I know this is an enormous topic, and we can't even scratch the surface in this kind of a show, which is so brief, but I just want to share from my heart some ideas that have helped me, and in the hopes that it might help you as well. So one of the main things that I've learned in the last several years is that the source of love is God, and that love shows up in our lives in all different forms, and the source always remains God. So if we know that we live and move and have our being in the divine, in spirit, in life, in love, we are connected to the source of all that is. We are connected to the source of love with a capital L. So when it seems like we're disconnected from love by the loss of a person or somebody who's passed on or the breakup of a relationship, we have to remember that that is the illusion of being separated from God, being separated from Source. And that is the illusion that brings a sense of loss. If we understand that we live and move and have our being in love, we can never fall out of love. We can never be outside the realm of love. And recognizing that the source is always the divine and never something outside of us, never another person or an animal. We lost our dog this year, and that was very, very sad. And I lost my dad this year, and my sister-in-law, and almost lost a very close family member in the inside family. So it's been a very challenging year. And I think when facing loss, a lot of fear comes up. And the fear is that we're going to lose something that, I think for me, it's always losing that sense of love and losing a sense of belonging and losing a sense of connectedness, losing a sense of feeling filled up with another person or whatever the circumstance is outside. But when we recognize that the source is divine, we can never lose being filled up with love. And what's true is when I know that I am always connected to my source, then the expression of that can show up in all different forms and fill the need that I have, that we all have, to feel loved and to feel love. So I can just give you a little example. A friend of mine, and I won't use myself here because it's a little bit close to home, but this is a simple example, but it does sort of show the point. A friend of mine lost her dog, a dear, dear friend of hers, her constant companion, and at the same time, she broke up with a boyfriend. So she was feeling this enormous sense of loss and felt like there was just no love around her at all. And we had a conversation about these very ideas, about the source being God, and that she can never be outside of God and outside of love. So that love has to always be in her life. And the manifestation of it, when we understand that the source is divine, then the expression of it can show up in all different ways. If we think of the source as being coming from the dog or coming from the person, then when the person or the dog or the circumstance changes or goes away, then there goes our source of love. So that's why knowing that the source is divine and that you are always connected to your source means that you can never be without it. I hope that connection is clear. So we had this conversation. She understood the concept, but was still feeling obviously very distraught. And the next day, a squirrel showed up on her patio, and she thought, oh my goodness, there's a little squirrel. And she started putting little nuts out for it. And the next day it came as well. So over the course of the next few days, this squirrel showed up every day on her patio, and she was feeding it nuts, and she just felt like she had this connection with the squirrel. This may sound sort of cute and simple, but it does illustrate the point. She was fed, her soul, her need for love was fed by this little creature that came to visit her every day and eventually ate out of her hand, which was very cute. But she was open to receiving love from the universe, from God, from Source, in whatever form was available to her in that moment. And she said later that it couldn't have been a dog because she missed her dog too much, and it couldn't have been a person because she was still too very connected to the boyfriend that she had lost, that this was a form of love that she could receive without feeling the loss of the other things. And it got her over the hump of feeling that great sense of loss and that great sense of despair. There was an instance I can share of when this was years ago, and I was dating my now husband, and I had just come out of kind of a codependent relationship and was in some bad habits. So I didn't want to call him when I was feeling needy. And I was feeling very distraught one day. We were on separate coasts. It was kind of a long distance relationship. And I was in one of those places where I was just, sobbing and crying and feeling lonely and just feeling just horrible and sad and very much alone. And of course, when I cry, my eyes get puffy, my nose gets red, and I don't want to see people because I just look like a mess. So I looked like a hot mess. It was kind of raining. It's New England. It was kind of cold and drizzly. And I went to this beach that I grew up on, my favorite beach, which isn't a very large beach. It's maybe a quarter of a mile long, and there are big rocks on either end and a parking lot on one side. So it's just beach and rocks on either end. So I'm walking along this beach and I'm just sobbing, crying. It's like, God, where are you? And and I was just praying, God, I need to feel a sense of love. Those times when you just want to feel loved. You just want to feel that tangible sense of love. And honestly, if a person had come up to me at that point, I would have been really embarrassed, and that wouldn't have been good. But I was really working with the idea that God is the source of love, and I was turning to God with my whole heart saying, God, I need to feel loved right here, right now. And out of the blue, and I'm kind of just walking along and sobbing and looking down, out of the blue, this dog comes up behind me and puts his head under my hand. And so I kind of looked down and go, oh, there's a dog. And I was petting a dog, and I was kind of walking along and sobbing and petting this dog. And it just made me feel very comforted. And then I got kind of distracted by a seagull. That went on for a few minutes. I got distracted by a seagull and looked up and saw the seagull and was like, oh, that's cool. And I looked down and the dog was gone. And I looked up the beach and down the beach, not a very big beach. The dog was gone. I kid you not. So that experience actually, I really honestly feel like it was a dog angel, and it met my need in the moment. There's a line, I know I always quote this book, and I don't really need to apologize because the book is amazing. Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures. Divine love always has met and always will meet every human need. And I love that it says divine love will meet the human need. Like in that moment, in my friend's case as well, the human need was to feel love, was to feel a sense of love, to feel connected. And divine love met my need, met my friend's need. The source is not the object outside of us. The source is always God. It's always divine. And when we get that, when we really let that sink in, then the manifestation of love can be anything, and it will meet your need. And so just to kind of bring this full circle, I wanted to share those ideas with this dear, dear woman who sent me an email after having watched the program called There Is No Death. And if you haven't seen that one, I highly recommend that if you're facing a sense of death or loss from the belief of death. But no matter what the sense of loss is, whether it be death, whether it be relationships, whether it be, a job or home, and a lot of people have found, that they've lost a sense of home from storms and hurricanes recently and floods and that kind of thing. Money, security, innocence. There are all sorts of things that we can feel a sense of loss from. But if we understand that our source is divine, we can never be detached from our source. We live and move and have our being in God. So that is my prayer for you tonight. I hope that the lovely woman who emailed me will watch this and will get something out of it. And if you feel that these ideas are helpful, please feel free to share them. I'm going to be posting this on YouTube, and I'll share the YouTube link later so that if you have friends who don't have Facebook, they can watch this as well. The YouTube channel is Ideas on Truth. The email is ideasontruth@gmail.com. So please feel free to be in touch. Always feel free to put your messages below, and we have a dialogue and talk with each other. I thank you so much for watching, and do send a lot of love your way, and always feel that we are connected and that we do share a sense of love and that we are held in the divine. So I love you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.